To start with the team news first of all, if you could give us a bit of an update. I think Levi Sutton, Tom Elliott, how are they both getting on?
Levi is still unavailable, unfortunately. He's still got a little bit of discomfort. Tom Elliott is probably will look, in terms of his injury, it's more significant than we thought initially, so it's the likelihood is that he'll probably miss the rest of the season if we're honest, unfortunately, but he'll be seeing specialists on his knee. He has seen some, obviously, up to this point. That's given us that indication, so yeah, it was disappointing for him.
Yeah, that is disappointing. How is he?
Yeah, he's disappointed because he hasn't been able to show, obviously, myself and Glyn what he can do, so yeah, it's I think from his point of view, he's just going to make sure he's right and ready to go again.
And Levi, have you got any time scale on him?
Levi's injury has settled down quite quickly. He's had the problem before. It's something that we manage. It's just flared up again, and there's a little bit of discomfort for him. But we're hopeful that next week he'll be able to join in training again and be able to manage the issue.
And any other injuries that we need to be aware of before the weekend?
No, I don't think so.
Good. I understand you had a behind closed doors friendly this week against a Huddersfield side. What was the thinking behind that, and what did you get from it? Yeah,
it was a good game. I was of the mind that it was important that we've got a number of lads that are coming back from injuries, and hadn't had a lot of football in recent weeks as well. So you looked at likes of Lee Angle, who's been out a significant amount of time, and it was good to get him out there. He played only a small part, but did okay. Other guys, likes of Oscar Threlgeld, he's obviously had a lot of game time. So any number of the guys in and around the first team who've when he had minutes here and there, likes of Nathan and Lavs, and we had a good senior group out there, and some youngsters as well who I wanted to have a look at, obviously, in terms of my understanding of what they can offer. So it was good exercise, really enjoyed it. It was good standard, good pitch, good surface, so I think the lads got a lot out of it.
And I'm sure you would have as well. They'll all be so desperate to make a good impression on you between now and the end of the season, you know, they'll be wanting to knock on the door and say, let's have a chance.
Yeah, there was that opportunity. I just think it's only fair that I try and allow them that opportunity to be able to show what they can do. It's important for them, obviously, for a number of the players that are out of contracts, so they need to at least give me an indication of what they're about. I see them, majority of them, in training each day, so it's not a case that I don't know predominantly what they can do, but clearly playing games against other opposition, that gives you better insight.
And with those out of contract players, with the club being in a position of relative safety at the moment now, do you start to have those conversations perhaps a little earlier than you might have done, or hang fire until after the final game of the season?
No, we'll get to a point. We're not there yet. It's still a number of weeks before we make any concrete decision. In my own mind, I'm pretty clear where we need to go and what I need to do in terms of the players in the building at the moment, but there's still opportunities for a number of them. But yeah, we're planning for next year clearly already, and that process continues right through the summer as well. So it's a case of making sure that we're in a good situation and we've got the right players in the building to enable us to be successful next year.
The club accounts came out this week as well, which showed a drop in the money coming into the club for all manner of different reasons. Are you still confident that the finances are in place, that you will be able to assemble the sort of squad that you want going forwards?
Well, yeah, I think the club obviously was hurt by obviously the COVID pandemic, like a lot of clubs were. So obviously when you're not getting fans through the turnstiles, it's going to affect your bottom line. And clearly, we're in a position where we have good numbers coming to our games, so it was always going to be detrimental to us. But I think we're in good shape. Certainly, in terms of the budget that I'm being told would be available, it's a decent budget at this level. So I'm quite comfortable where we're sitting financially, and hopefully we can utilise it in the best way. We don't want to waste a penny, because it's about that. If we are spending money on players to come to the club, or what have you, on contracts renewals and the like, then we have to get them correct, because we can't afford to waste anything.
I wondered how much of your remit going forward as well is bringing through young players who ultimately will be sold off. I don't mean that in a way that's specific to Bradford. I think pretty much every football club aside the top four in the Premier League are, inverted commas, selling clubs these days. But is that a particular part of your remit, to bring on talent that ultimately might make a profit for the club?
Well, you always have that in mind. It's not the basis for the whole financial structure of the club, but it's part of it. But ideally, what you want to do is produce players that will come through to your own first team and have an impact, and maybe in the future you're able to benefit from that in terms of capital. But I think that's a part of what we do, but it's not a huge part. It's more about what we generate ourselves in terms of gate receipts and the like, and we'll try and maximise that. We'll do that obviously by playing well and getting full houses if we can.
Away from home again this weekend though, Northampton, also a team who are pushing to get out of this division, as were Bristol Rovers. Many comparisons between the two sides, or are they going to be a very different kettle of fish to Bristol Rovers?
They're a little bit more direct than Bristol Rovers, but they're another team, and we seem to talk about these teams every week since I've been in the building, that they're teams that have got a lot to play for, are going for playoff places or top of the league clashes, and we have to test ourselves against them. It's good for me because I get a real indication in terms of what the best teams in this league are like, and the ones at the top, what do they do well in comparison to ourselves. So it gives me a real insight into what can be successful at this level. So it's difficult going into these games because you know you're up against good opposition, but from my point of view it's invaluable. That insight that I'll get and the learnings that we'll all take from going up against these teams will help us next year. So I'm more than happy to face these teams, although at times maybe they may well have that little edge that, given that we're mid-table, we might lack. I don't anticipate that will be the case, because I wouldn't want that to be acceptable. But we have to guard against that and understand that obviously teams at the top have real opportunities, and we've got to make sure we match them. And equally, if you can match that, as you did, to great effect against Forest Green Rovers away, if you can show that the players are already in the building that can match the clubs at the top of League Two, maybe not so much a big of an overhaul needed in the summer. Well, clearly there is still that opportunity for players to impress from now to the end of the season, and that's why they have to bring the edge to their game that will enable them to do that. So I've no worries in that regard. In all honesty, I haven't seen any drop-off in terms of energy or real commitment to what we're trying to do. It's just you're mindful of it, but I haven't seen it up to this point. It's difficult times, isn't it, for those players who are out of contract this summer? You know, that air of uncertainty never really brings out the best in anybody. How do you kind of deal with that man management angle of the job? Yeah, it's difficult. It's probably more pronounced at this level than maybe at other clubs I've been at, but I think there's an acceptance of that's how it is and that's how it has to be, because invariably players are coming to the end of contracts. They're on 12 months, or sometimes they get 24 months. That's the norm usually. So there's a huge turnover of players, and I think there's inevitability of that there's quite a little bit of churn in clubs when you come to the end of the season, but the skill is obviously making sure you keep the correct players and you add to what quality you've already got.
And in terms of shaping the squad going forwards, is it something that you would be keen to try and get done as soon as possible once this end of the season arrives?
Well, yeah, you always like the players settled and ready for pre-season, but sometimes there's good opportunities that take a little bit longer, and maybe players have an expectation that maybe they're thinking that they'll have opportunities at a high level. They don't come to fruition for them, so they lower their sights somewhat, and maybe we come back into their thinking. So you never say never, because you never know when something that makes sense in terms of acquisition of players. You're never quite sure when they present themselves, and it's up to us to make sure we're ready to bring good players into the club and have the means to, if those opportunities become available.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Pleasure.
If you take the financial side out of it, is that side of management dealing with the players very similar to how it was for you at, say, Southampton or anywhere else you've been?
Well, ultimately, I have to make a decision in terms to obviously give the information to the powers that be who discuss with agents and whatever. But probably at the higher level, it's more between chief executives and sometimes owners. Agents like to bypass managers sometimes when they think they might get the answer they're looking for. So sometimes at the top level, management gets circumvented a little bit. So I don't anticipate that'll be the case this year, because obviously we're hands-on here. I'm hands-on. It's about getting the best deals for Bradford and keeping the best talent here that we can. We have to accept that the good players we got will be attracted to other clubs as well. So I think at the moment a lot of people are keeping their cards close to their chest and keeping options open. So that's a two-way street, I suppose.
And obviously we're coming into another one of those busy periods in the football season. How do you manage to divide your time and get all the information you need when the games are so thick and fast?
Well, we've got good support staff here. The guys do a great job in terms of analysis of our opposition leading into games, so I'm quite comfortable with that. That's what I'm used to, and that's what I'm getting. So I have no problems with the level of information I'm getting. It's really important, obviously, I have the correct information and the type of information that I can use to good effect in terms of formulating the game plan that I want going up against these teams. So yeah, the support staff, I think I've mentioned before, is fine, and all the elements that are here in the building, but maybe not in terms of boots on the ground, so to speak. There's not as many people, but as I've said, it's sometimes better to be more involved, because there's no reason to delegate and give people the opportunity to do the job, because everybody's got to jump in and help out.
Cheers.
I was asking about a couple of players, Mark. That's right. I mean, Dion Pereira, obviously, he's having this run now. I mean, he's playing on the wing. He's now playing as number 10. I mean, where do you sort of see him ideally as? I think the best suited?
Well, I looked at him in the position last week, just because I felt it was a good option for him, because he's technically a good player. I just felt maybe on the right-hand side, sometimes you can be restricted just because oppositions will try and tie you down in one area of the pitch, and I just thought maybe playing him in the middle of the park would give him the option to go left or right and give him more room to operate. As it was, we didn't really get enough ball to him in those areas. I always felt that when we did, he looked like he could affect the opposition. A couple of times we were a little bit loose, and Dion himself will admit that there was a couple of opportunities where we could have been a little bit more careful, and we probably would have had better situations. But yeah, I think certainly it's a role he can play and a position he can play. Nothing last week really deterred me from that. It was just about us as a team being able to release him in the right areas on enough occasions.
And obviously, the fact that he's a lone player. I mean, is he someone potentially you could look at and try and get back, or is it a case of?
Yeah, no doubt. I like
make that conversation.
Yeah, I like Dion, and he's done well. He hasn't played a great deal of football in the last few years, in fairness. So coming here and ourselves allowing him the opportunity to play week in, week out is something that he's lacked in his career in recent seasons. So I feel sure he's enjoyed the experience up to this point. Obviously, he's come from a club at a high level, and he's played at a good level prior to coming here. So I'm sure he probably feels he's talented enough to play at a high level. But it's all about timing and opportunity, and I just feel we're a good option not only to Dion but to a lot of players. I think we can give them, if they feel they need a platform, then certainly it's good to come to Bradford City at the moment, and certainly next year I think, given our intention to have a really strong season next year, I think people will want to be a part of that. So the likes of Dion, I would like to think, seriously consider.
And presumably also other players, when you talk about potential loans to clubs in a high division, you know, as we spoke before, the sell of the club itself and the fact that you've got 14,000 crowds, you've got that expectation which presumably they want.
Absolutely. Well, that's what clubs at higher leagues want. They want to try and replicate as near as possible what they'll be exposed to if they go back to their home clubs. So we can do that. We can give them players opportunities to show that they can deal with expectation and big crowds behind them. So yeah, I think we know we're having conversations with people now, and they're saying the fact that obviously it's a big club, it's a city club, it's a club that get crowds. We're playing in a way that maybe teams at a high level will appreciate and like, and think, well, possibly we can send players to Bradford because they're getting it down and playing a little bit more than maybe in previous times. So I feel quite confident that we'll get some good loans in.
And also, you can almost overlook the division you're in the sense they can sort of say the environment, and they can sort of see the, as you say, the team, the club, the crowd. Yeah,
it's all there for it. I think, like I said, there's been lots of conversations already that we've talked about in terms of what we're trying to do here, and people can see that it could be a good opportunity for their client, so to speak.
And I was also going to ask you about Andy Cook. Obviously, he's had a run without a goal. He then scored at Forest Green. We spoke about it then, and now he's had a run a bit. You know, he's going through a spell where he's scored consistently for the first year he's been at this club, pretty much 1 in 2. And obviously, he's had a run, I think, 1 goal in 13, something like that. I mean, you know, it's got to be playing on his mind. How do you sort of help him overcome that?
Yeah, it's difficult when you're a striker. Listen, I was a striker for a long time. I was never one that scored week in, week out. I was a little bit streaky myself, so it was always a case of when I was scoring, inevitably I'd score one after another. And sometimes there's periods where you don't score, but as long as you're contributing to the team and you're affecting the opposition, which Andy does for us, then I haven't got a problem with it. Ideally, from his own point of view, we would rather be scoring. And I think Andy's maybe one of those players that worries a little bit when he doesn't score, which is understandable. But I think
just sort of put an arm around it.
You just need to encourage players when maybe they're trying to find the form they know they're capable of. Bridget's done fine, and if you continue to do the right things, then as a player you get back your form. So it's only a matter of time with Andy, I'm sure.
Because obviously the fact that Tom Elliott is unfortunately unavailable now, it would have been good competition perhaps to, sort of... Yeah,
well, like I mentioned, Lee Angles obviously had 45 minutes the other day. We'll try and build him up, and at some point he will be available. So, yeah, competition's healthy in all positions.